Alright guys, so I promised you a trip report about my experiences with 3-MeO PCP. And this one is really important because this was the last trip report that I wrote before I had my psychotic episode. And my psychotic episode happened actually I can give you an exact date. So this was written on the 3rd, and my psychotic episode started on the 25th. And the psychotic episode was brought on by DMT. So I want to begin by saying that this is basically a warning of what not to do on tripping and things like that, and what kind of responsibility you're supposed to have towards these things, because this was irresponsible. But this one was 6 years and 2 months ago. So I think the date was February 3rd, 2013. And after this experience, I pretty much stopped using dissociatives. I think I did it a few more times, but after that, I didn't really see a point to it. I don't really do them now, only because I'm taking a lot of my art seriously, and that includes my piano playing, and dissociatives kind of ruined my ability to have proper motor control, so I don't really want to mess up my progress with practice and everything, and just have something in the middle where I have to retrain my body to have better motor control. Like it's just a lot of pain in the butt I don't really want to go through, so I think it's better to just stay away from dissociatives. So I'll get into the report, and I'm just going to read it to you guys because it's really interesting on its own. It's a pretty entertaining one, so I think you guys might enjoy it. So I'm just going to get into it. So I wrote, "Hey guys, I feel the need to share a trip report. It is my most irresponsible one yet. Anywho, it started on a Wednesday night. I decided to dose 5 APB at 140 milligrams. And I should say that I had a trip report on 5 APB before on my channel, so you guys can read about that if you want to know more about it. I actually didn't know that I took so much of it. I didn't even know that I mixed them too, because I didn't even know if that was going to be dangerous or not. Like I really wasn't thinking at all. But I guess it's good to know that, you know, these technically would be not lethal, I guess, because I made it out alive, so I guess that's good for science. So I'll get back to what I wrote. So it was 9 p.m. roughly. While it was coming on, I played the piano. I love to play the piano on the come up of 5 APB. The amphetamine stimulation lets my fingers move at incredible speeds while maintaining consistency in my playing, i.e. accurate note hitting and enhanced expressive abilities. That would be interesting to try, you know, nowadays for what I do in piano. So when I was done with that, the typical psychedelic effects were in full force. It feels like a lot of amphetamine and a strong dose of LSD, very similar to AMT in my opinion. I went downstairs and scaled out 20 milligrams of 3-MeO PCP and snorted it. 3-MeO PCP is one of the greatest, most powerful drugs I've ever encountered. I have tremendous respect for it, especially after this experience. 20 milligrams spaced out is my usual dose for it, and it causes strong dissociative and stimulative effects. It's similar to 100 to 200 milligrams of S-isomer ketamine at that dose in my experience. The visuals are similar to 3-MeO PCP, but seems more visual and scarier. You have more mobility with walking on 3-MeO PCP compared to ketamine. 3-MeO PCP mixed with strong psychedelics is the most godlike experience ever. I wrote a small trip report combining 3-MeO PCP with 4-ACO DMT, and it was utterly superior to anything I've ever had in every way. Visions, headspace, and all. Words cannot express the love I have for 3-MeO PCP tryptamine combinations. This combination with 5-APB was no different. Incredible. I won't go into details, but it was magical. But this is where I had a severe lapse in judgment. It was 7 a.m. and I had to work at 11 a.m. Somehow I thought that if I snorted a huge line, I'll be straight enough to work for 4 hours. Jesus, I was wrong. I decided it would be a good idea to underestimate this drug and treat it like ketamine. So, with my big P-tarded brain and dissociative vision, I eyeballed what was anywhere from 40 to 60 milligrams, and I snorted the whole thing up. There was roughly 30 milligrams I was about to snort up to, but I decided not to. That last one, in retrospect, would have probably killed me. It took me that 4 hours I thought I had to trip just to come up. By the time I had to go to work, I was peaking. I couldn't talk. Everything was a complete dissociative slideshow. I was retarded, completely unable to think. My dad comes upstairs to tell me he's ready to drive me to work, and I didn't know how to use my phone to call in sick, and I couldn't talk on top of that. So in my head, I thought it would be fine. I thought I would go to work, and by the time I was there, I'll be functional enough to work. I used a lot of my brain power to figure out how I'm going to put on my clothes. I am the most dissociated I've ever been in my life at this point. I pull that off, and then I'm out the door in the car. Walking is very difficult at this point, and I'm struggling to keep my balance. The drive to work was strange. A complete slideshow, unable to process frames, and it's very bright. When I get to work, I keep my head down, and I don't talk to anyone. I work as prep/dishwasher at a Italian restaurant. When I get to the washroom, I immediately start puking. And I was also puking while I was running to the washroom too. The puke was basically just this white liquid that I was constantly just pushing out of my mouth every 5 minutes. It was something was kind of going wrong. That never happened before. It was a busy lunch service, and I had to wash dishes and pans. I was getting higher and higher. My vision became so impaired I could barely see anything. I cut myself 3 times on knives and didn't feel a thing. I kept one eye closed to combat the dissociative vision. Everything was completely bright to the point of looking holographic, and everything was a slideshow. This was starting to cause extreme anxiety. I didn't like the brightness, and it was scaring me. I was calling on all the shamanic power I had to remain calm and complete the job. I imagined myself as a warrior in this case, and I was fighting to my death. And in this case, washing dishes while overdosing on 3-MeO PCP. Well, I would wash as many dishes as I could while trying to keep my balance, and then running to the washroom to puke and gag my brains out. This was going on for a pattern of 4 hours, and by some miracle of hell, I made it through my shift successfully. My high was not starting to decrease yet, and my ride picked me up and took me home, and I passed out on my bed for 9 hours. I wake up heavily dissociated, but still way more sober in comparison. I wait a few hours and then to try to eat a hot dog. I puke that up. My stomach doesn't want food at this time, and it's also in pain and the heaviness feeling in both my kidneys. This lasted for 2 days. I took 24 hours to come down to baseline from it. That was the longest, most intense, scary experience of my life. I learned that this drug is very powerful and very dangerous, and I must respect the hell out of it or I could kill myself. This was definitely a wake-up call. So yeah, that was the report that I wrote 6 years ago, and I learned a lot from that, and I've cleaned up my act, as you guys can probably see, and I'm a lot more responsible with what I do. And yeah, and when I mentioned the psychosis, basically what happened with the psychosis was caused by DMT. And if you want to get the gist of it, you can just listen to the climax of the Rosetta Stone song from the band Tool. If you have heard that song and if you listen to it and if you've heard the climax and stuff, you'll basically know what went down with me in terms of my psychosis. And that lasted until 2015, when someone I reached out to that was part of my psychosis, and they kind of brought me out of it by being pretty harsh with me, and yeah, now I'm kind of in reality, and there you go. That's my story. So I hope you guys are entertained by that, and hopefully I will keep entertaining you guys. I'll see you later.